Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Urban Fantasy Wynonna Earp fan panel here, going on for Dragon Con Goes Virtual 2020. Appreciate you folks checking in, either live as we're broadcasting on YouTube Live, or maybe you're watching the recording later. Either way is fine. We appreciate you being here. My name is Kevin Batchelder, and for those who don't know me, I am the assistant track director here on the Urban Fantasy track. I'm also one of the hosts of the Tales of the Black Badge podcast. Now, if you are new to DragonCon, or this is one of the first panels you're checking out, we do recommend you go to the DragonCon website at dragoncon.org if you're watching this live over DragonCon weekend, because there are links there to multiple video feeds available from the con, main events, fan panels, classic stuff in the DC land, DC TV land, content going 24 hours a day here on con weekend. And also each of the tracks, much like us here on Urban Fantasy, is doing additional coverage on their YouTube channels or social media pages. So tons and tons of great content. We encourage you to check it out. This is part of what makes DragonCon so awesome when we're normally in Atlanta every Labor Day weekend, but we want to see you folks get a flavor for it. So please do give it a look, give it a check. I think you'll enjoy quite a bit. Lots of other passionate folks. And I do have several joining me today, and I'm going to let them all kind of introduce themselves to you folks to real quickly, at least let you know who they are before we start talking here. Let's start with Bonnie.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Ferrar. I'm the other host of the Tales of the Black Badge podcast with Kevin. I'm also a Wynonna fans on Twitter. I'm very excited to be here.
All right, Carol.
Hi, I'm Carol Malcolm. I am the track director for Urban Fantasy. We're thrilled to be hosting so many of you that we know we're excited to have this panel. And I'm excited personally to let Kevin moderate this panel and just be a panelist. And I have promised to be good and not heckle him too much. If anyone thinks that I'm being bad, please tell me. Thank you.
All right. Duly noted, Carol. I'll keep my eyes open. Right. All right. Lisa M., because we do have two Lisas.
Hello, and welcome to my fellow Earpers. I'm Lisa Manifold. I write urban fantasy, paranormal, and paranormal romance, and I am a huge Earp fan. I'm an even huger Doc fan. That's kind of what drew me into this, but now it's the entire show.
All right. John, how about you?
Hi, I'm John Hartness. I am the founder and publisher of Falstaff Books. We're an independent press based in Charlotte, North Carolina. I also write a few things, the Bubba the Monster Hunter series, Quincy Harker, the Demon Hunter series, the Black Knight Chronicles, and I'm a cast member of the Authors and Dragons live play D&D podcast, as well as doing a few other things here and there. And I am a big fan of this show, so glad to be back.
Awesome. All right, and Lisa.
Hi, my name is Lisa Harrison, and I am a writer for Nice Girls TV. We love talking TV, and I'm also a voice actor for Garfield's Crossing podcast. I am a new Earper, and I'm very excited to be here. About a month ago, I hadn't seen one episode of the show yet, and I binged the entire thing, and I'm just excited to be here and talk about the show. And I told Kevin that I was official now, so I think this makes me official.
Well done. Well done. Yeah, and so many fans have found the show, I know, during quarantine and the pandemic, and also it's wonderful to have some new eyes on the show. Lisa, welcome. Now, what we're going to be focusing on for the most part here in this discussion panel today is what we're calling Season 4A, the first 6 episodes of Season 4. For any new fans who might not be aware, we'll be getting the remaining 6 episodes of Season 4 later. They're shooting those up in Calgary now, finishing that up. So the pandemic, as it did with many shows, kind of forced a break in the action there. And I got to say, as a moderator, when I started to make some notes on what to talk about, I thought, oh, there's only 6 episodes. I mean, we're going to be able to fill an hour. And then I reflected on those 6 episodes and thought, oh, no problem there. We could go in a lot of directions. So I'm encouraging my panelists to just go on whatever tangents or ideas come up here. I'm just going to kind of steer things a little bit as we go. But I thought I'd start out by asking each of you kind of an unfair question, but we'll see where you go with it. Can you give me, in one sentence or less, a description for this season so far? You can use a single word, a couple of words, or a sentence, but I just kind of want your gut reaction to the first 6 episodes of this season. And Lisa, let's start with you.
Froggy. That's the first thing that came to mind was Froggy and Way Hot.
All right.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
John, how about you?
Nicole and Waverly take center stage, and the show is better for it.
All righty. Lisa M.
I need to see more Doc and Wynonna, and the whole thing's been heartbreaking. It's been heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I'm the party pooper. It's been heartbreaking.
No, I'm agreeing with you, but I have some thoughts on that. But
All right. Bonnie.
So you said a sentence, right? Like we
I'll
can
give
do
you
a
a
full
sentence.
sentence, right? All right, it's gonna be a run-on sentence, but all right. Bad things happen when they're not together, but found family is never more important than when you make a mistake.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah, that is good.
yeah,
That's a decent
Jeremy
sentence.
kind of reflected on that in the last episodes, or for this part of the season.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Well,
Okay.
What's that?
No, go ahead, Carol.
Oh no, I was going to say, for me, I'm guessing I'm the last one. So okay, for me, what came to mind when you said that, when you asked us that, was chaos.
Yes.
And that was the first. I mean, although to be fair, you could probably say that at any season finale for this show all along. But I mean, and this was technically a mid-season finale, but still, that's kind of what came to mind. I
You
mean,
could
we
say
have
that.
Purgatory in disarray, if nothing else. So yeah,
Mhm.
definitely
I think you
chaos.
could say chaos for any season beginning too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that I'm talking more on the production side and maybe the behind the camera side of things. But man, this show they have made it through some stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, they have.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, a big part of this show certainly is the Earp fandom and what's gone on in the 2 years almost that we waited between seasons. It's been quite the journey.
It just seems like every time they're ready to start, it's like, oh, and by the way, your lead actress is pregnant. And by the way, your ratings are great and the production company is out of money. And by the way, the world is ending. Go.
I don't know how you guys did as a newbie. I mean, I waited, the next day before I started season 4. So I don't know how you guys, how did you guys do it during that time, the 2 years that you had to wait? Is it 2 years? Yeah, almost 2 years.
It was almost 2 years.
There
Yeah.
are 15
I didn't know if it was going to
episodes.
come back.
There are 15 seasons of Criminal Minds available on streaming, and that helped a lot.
Well,
No, it's a great question, Lisa. I'd like to go ahead, folks. You want to touch on that one? Kind of what was it like for almost 2 years, knowing, as John brought up, that there was a good chance the show was not going to come back.
Well,
I wasn't sure that it was going to. I mean, I was very involved in supporting it, but I wasn't sure because, and I see in the comments it says Earpers never give up, and they don't. But it's not necessarily just the Earpers; it's the production company, and the production company, I really wondered, how do you run out of money when you have this really successful show? Mm-hmm. What are you doing over there that we don't know about?
Yeah.
And for about the first year, I felt the same way as Lisa did. I didn't know if it was going to make it back. I didn't know if it was going to make it back in the same format, if it was going to be like Lucifer or The Expanse and move to a different platform, or what, because yeah, we didn't know where the money was, and making TV is crazy expensive, and networks money is weird. And all of that magical maneuvering of cash, I didn't know if it was going to come back either. And then when we heard it was going to come back, almost immediately, oh yeah, by the way, you can't be near another human being, so how are you going to make TV now?
Right. Well, I will say that it's due to the efforts of Kevin and Bonnie and people like them who were so actively involved in helping to energize the fan base. Now, me, I kind of feel like Nedley standing. My favorite quote from the first episode of this season is, "I feel like I've been standing here for 2 years." I mean, that for a lot of us, that's what we felt like. But for the people who were really doing, I mean, I would share a lot of things, and I did, tried to draw as much attention as I could and sent people towards the show. But yeah, I mean, I think that even for the people involved in the show as closely as people like Kevin and Bonnie are, or, the people that are even in the show, that even then, despite how much hope you might have, there's still the possibility it wasn't going to happen. And but by drawing attention to it, you really put them under the microscope. Yep. And they had to, something had to give.
I think that, for me, first off, Kevin and I did some things to help energize the fan base and direct stuff, but there were so many more people who did way more than us in a lot of ways. Like all the Earpers that stood outside in the freezing cold outside of Times Square to take pictures of the billboards, all the Earpers that came up with billboard ideas and did that. We did a lot of different things during that time. I think that getting through those 2 years, I think if you had told me right after season 3 was done that we had to wait 2 years, I would have been devastated and it would have been really hard. But we didn't think we had to wait that long. And then come, February, when things are starting to get going and production should be starting, and you're like, why isn't production starting? And then we ended up starting this whole fight. Lots of people involved, writing articles. That was a really big one too. Lots of the noise from Twitter, like every Earper that made noise and things started trending. Fight for Wynonna started trending, and big newspapers were like, what's going on? And all of a sudden we were getting interview requests, and other Earpers were getting interview requests because people were like, what is this little show that basically got this noisy fan base? So we just screamed loud, and I'm fortunate that I can spread things a little bit far, with followers and stuff. But there were so many Earpers that really had a hand in that, way more, I think, just kind of really on the ground, pulling the whole thing through. And the more national attention it got, the more that put pressure on the. So during that time, we were so busy trying to we were calling secretaries at IDW and all these other places. We were spamming, we were sending, we were talking about, do we send potatoes? Do we send donuts? Which is it? We were trying to figure out a way to what's the next step? And so I think that kind of kept everybody's mind off of the despair. Is this sort of feeling like we were fighting for this show that we loved so much, and we had this purpose and this reason. We were fighting for family. In a lot of ways, that's how we felt, and for each other, and for the cast and the crew. And we had people who were on the show one episode, old cast members and old crew members who were right there in it. We had in fact, this is the Fight for Wynonna shirt that Laura Innes designed, and stuff like that. Everybody was just all in, and it was really cool to see that play out. And then we got the renewal, and then we had to sit again for another. So I think it's sort of because it was broken up into these little chunks, it was manageable. But if you had told me when season 3 ended and Waverly got snatched in the garden and they were like, okay, now it's going to be 2 years, I would have been I'd have been devastated. So I think you just took it one day at a time.
my hat's off to you guys. Like I definitely saw the push on social media, and I would see a lot of Kevin's tweets, and I would always try to share because I went through it with Lucifer, so I knew I was like, oh, we got to get it. And Wynonna Earp was always on my list, and I felt like I was so far behind. And I'm just so glad I finally watched it because I'm like, I absolutely love it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that leads in a little bit to my next question. And even John mentioned a little bit in the idea of, having another show you can watch. Nowadays, there are like 500 shows available on countless platforms in countless places. What is it about this one that makes it special for you? Why were folks that active, if you will, to save it? And why are you as engaged as you are to be on a fan panel for it? Why don't we start with the newbie, Lisa?
Well, for me, I feel like I've just been living in in purgatory for the past month while I was watching the show, and my love it's the team together. I love the characters. Our site tends to like to watch shows that have strong female leads. I love the relationship between Wynonna and Waverly. I love the relationship between Waverly and Hot. I love to just call her Hot. The relationships, the family, and then the supernatural aspects too. It just, you want to be a part of it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I'm still in it.
How about you, John?
It's right in my wheelhouse story-wise. I write urban fantasy, and I've been an urban fantasy fan before I wrote it. So this checks all of the Kim Harrison Hollows series, Faith Hunter's Jane Yellow Rock series. It checks a lot of the boxes for the book series that I love. And then it's a really strong ensemble, which from my growing up as a comic book nerd, it's the ensemble that makes the hero. If you take away Waverly and Nicole and Jeremy, I don't care if they're gone. If the ensemble pieces go away, it's like Batman without Robin and Alfred and Commissioner Gordon is a psychopath with too much money. So wait, even with them, Batman's still a psychopath with too much money. But having such a strong ensemble really adds a lot to me, and tonally the writing of the show, again, it's like a lot of stuff that I try to write. It's like a lot of stuff that I read, that snarky sense of humor, fallible characters. It's right in my wheelhouse on every level.
Lisa M.
So like I said, I actually started watching this show after the first season because of Doc Holliday. I'm a huge Doc Holliday fan. I actually write about Doc Holliday in one of my series. And what I really love about the show, I love the family. I love the relationships. I love that the relationships are messy because that's realistic in a family. But what I also love, and this is something that I've noticed because I've rewatched the seasons before leading up to season 4, is I like that they use historical accuracy to a degree, and then they spin off. Like in this season, the way that Doc's whole, viewpoint shifted watching that interview with the old Wyatt Earp. I love that idea that they're taking history and what really happened, and they're threading in the story of their characters inside that history. So, in addition to the family and the relationships and the romance, because they do romance beautifully on this show. It's beautiful. I love that they use history in a way that works for them. Like, they're not historically accurate, but it works for what they're trying to do.
Excellent. Bonnie?
Okay, so we're answering why we like the show, right?
Basically, yes.
All right, so we got time. Okay.
It's a 1-hour panel.
It all started in 2016. No, I was kidding. I think for me, it's multiple things, but the biggest thing is I like the humor a lot, like the quirky, like, strong humor. I feel like I've always said, if you like Wynonna Earp, I'm gonna like you because you probably get me and my sense of humor. I love the snarky, witty one-liners that make you just like, lose it. But it's become about, this. I love the strong female representation, but not in a traditional way. She's messy, she's broken, she makes mistakes, she's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and none of them are. I love that. I love the gray, that we just live in this gray between right and wrong, good versus evil, and you don't know from one minute to the next. You're supposed to be a hero, but then she doesn't always act like a hero, and sometimes they may all make mistakes, like even Doc, especially last season, and so what can you do with that, and how representative it is of life, and the fact that you can mess up and you can make mistakes and you can, and yet there's always a chance for redemption, and for you to be the person that you want to be, and to make it all comes down to choices and decisions. And but also I love the representation. The LGBTQ representation on the show is phenomenal. I love that we get characters way hot being played by out actors, and they are, the way that they actually show this relationship it feels real. It doesn't feel like just a semi storyline, just for ratings. It is an actual relationship. And it's not the full focal point of their characters either. Like, yes, they are way hot, but Waverly is Waverly, Nicole is Nicole, and they have fully formed characters, and they're very integral to the plot, to the season, and they're not, and yet they also have a relationship. And so I've loved that aspect of it. I think that's so important. Representation in TV is so important for people to see themselves portrayed in various, and especially these days. So I like that, and I like the bold storytelling that Emily Andress and the writers take. I love the chances that they take, things that you see on the show that you wouldn't see in other shows, because it's not, it wouldn't fly necessarily. It's not safe, and I love that literally from 1 minute to the next, I do not know what is going to happen. 1 minute we've got like a gnome chasing them through the forest. The next minute they're like, they're shooting a naked Nedley with kombucha water guns, and like you don't really know. You can never really know what's going to happen. And that really bold type of storytelling, it's not safe. And I think I respect that a lot from the cast and the crew and the writers and the people who greenlight it and say, okay, fine, we'll see. Is that going to work? So anyway, that's my not so short answer, but that was actually pretty short, Kevin. Come on. I feel like that was really short.
You're doing great.
Thanks.
You all are. Carol, how about you?
Well, I think
you watch a lot of shows. I know you do naturally for the track.
Right. Well, what drew me to the show in the first place was the fact that, because it's urban fantasy, because you take the fantastical and or the supernatural, however you want to look at it, and combine it with something that, combine it with real life. That's my wheelhouse. That's what I enjoy. That's why I'm in charge of this track. But I'm just saying that's the kind of thing that appeals to me in the first place. Now, I would have started watching it anyway, because yes, it was, part of my track, one of the shows that I'm expected to cover. But it's always a bonus when one of the shows, and I'm very fortunate because I like everything actually that we get assigned. But I think what's special about this one is that it's pitch perfect when it comes to combining those elements that I enjoy. It does have the more or less realistic setting, and trust me, even without demons and whatever other stuff, I would not really want to live in Purgatory, but it feels like a real town. And then you've got the supernatural elements, which are not all clear, You've got the ridiculous, such as a couple of the things that Bonnie mentioned, the puff monster and, any number of other things that we think of as being really kind of silly. And then you've got the scary stuff and you've got, and the humor. I mean, but all of those things are mixed together so very well that it enables you to focus on the characters and the relationships, that you still have that backdrop so that there's more to it. The world building is so strong, and yet it's still, that it's a good setting for the characters. Because we all know the characters are great and their relationships are, very interesting and all of that. But if the background or the setting for it was not as engaging as it is, I think it would have been more difficult to pull off. And I think that just the melding of all of those elements has really worked out.
Can I add too, as an author, one of the things that I love is that as various things are happening in the show, they never forget what's going on in the rest of Purgatory. Because, I know we've all seen shows or read books where like the world is crumbling down on the main characters and their tribe of folks, their small tribe of folks. And then you wonder what's going on in the world outside of there. And they never forget that. Like, I always watch to see, and they never forget to include what's happening in Purgatory as they're dealing with their own personal pile of crazy.
And there are plenty of piles of crazy, yes.
Yeah, it's like pick one, just pick one. There's a buffet of crazy.
Well, leading into a lot of that, what I'd love to hear you folks talk about now is we had season 3 end, that big dramatic Waverly going into the garden, Doc going after her, dangling everything there, and we come back and we're in a snowy garden with multiple doors and time travel and Eve and everything else. So I'm curious now, maybe talk a little bit about, you all must have had some expectation before we might have started. I doubt it was where we did, but maybe talk a little bit about what was it early on, especially that hit you? What kind of made you think that there was more being developed here and I need to be more on top of that? In other words, what were you now, expectations probably thrown off? Where am I looking at now and where are we going a little bit here in season 4? Where do you think we are anyway, Carol?
Well, I was just thinking about this kind of, just a few minutes ago, actually, even before we started the panel. And it occurred to me that you can tell that we're only halfway through a season, essentially, because to me, I was not expecting the whole garden thing to be solved quite as quickly as it was. Because we haven't heard any more about it, so I'm sure we're going to hear more. But yes, I was totally surprised by the fact of, the time difference. Although, I mean, the fact that they think they're just gone overnight or whatever, or, it seems like a couple of days to them, but they're really gone 18 months out of the real world. And that was a surprise. And yet that's not that uncommon for, alternate dimensions and things like that. But I think that in order to move those other things in, the fact that the demons moved into town and now they have their own bar and now they have this and now they have that, and that they kind of had to make there be a time lag because that wouldn't have been able to, to happen quite as quickly. I was surprised about the Clantons and all of that got pulled in. And I thought that was a really good way to explore some of the other mysteries, and I don't know. I didn't really have an expectation. Of course, we know that we want them to get out of the garden, but I was kind of surprised that we haven't heard more about it yet, but I think we will, because if you've got this garden with a door that's, right there's going to be more coming somehow. And I think that we have a lot of kind of unanswered questions, but I'm happy with where the show takes me, essentially, as long as it makes sense in terms of the overall storyline and where they're going with the characters. So I've been enjoying it so far.
Bonnie?
Yeah, no, I didn't expect Snowy Stonehenge to be the garden at all. I thought it was, I mean, I don't know what I expected. I think I just, expected an actual garden. But, in looking back, that was foolish because, like, basically whatever you think, just flip it on its head. And that might be what the writers come up with. I think for the first couple of episodes, I was like a kid on a roller coaster. I was just so damn happy to be on the ride. I didn't care where it went, I was just like, woo, we're back, and like, look, there's Waverly, look, there's Doc. Oh, Jeremy, why is Doc getting Jeremy? Like I was doing that whole number. I was just so happy to be back and to hear some of the things that we had fought so hard for. I loved all the throwbacks and callbacks to the fandom and stuff, which was really great. And then, now as the season's or the mid-season finale has wrapped up a little bit, I'm left. We had like a happy ending to end the season, and I'm like more nervous than if we had like ended on a cliffhanger because I'm like, why didn't we have a cliffhanger? Like, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, oh God, where's Eve? Like I just keep like waiting for the like, other shoe to drop, and that like Emily doesn't just do anything and just leave it out there. So that some of that's coming back, and so I'm wondering what Eve has to do with the Clantons, has to do with Amon, has to do with everything that's been happening. So I'm excited to see where it goes. The season has felt like an adrenaline rush, and I think just it's moved so fast, and it's been so electric and exciting that I and the characters and being on the Sunday night time slot has given us a lot of other exciting scenes and things to ponder. But like I think having just the show back, I guess I was like, oh, and I've come to I guess understand that, right? Never what you expect. So I'm like, oh, okay, we're in snow. Got it. Oh, there's doors. Why is it? Oh well, what book did she choose? I'm sure we'll find out one season. Just kind of. But I'm just glad. I think I was just really glad for everybody to be back and to see everybody and get some of now that the gang seems to be back together. I'm excited to see where they go from here.
All right.
I do have to. Can I interject one thing from what you said, though, Bonnie? That you mentioned that that you thought the mid-season finale, which they didn't expect to be one, but it works as one for sure. That you thought it had a happy ending, but I don't completely agree with you on that. I think it was a split. Yeah, but in any case, we'll get to that, I'm sure. But okay. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I didn't mean like happy ending. I meant usually like the episode ends on this like, oh, what was that? So I kept expecting like when Doc walked out and Wayhot got engaged and Wynonna was upset. I kept expecting then like the window to pan over and there was going to be Billy the Reaper in the window, or like, or like Bolshar's ring was going to be on Rachel's finger, or something that we were all going to be like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And the fact that we're like, it's not like a happy ending, but it just felt, you know what I mean? Like it sort of didn't freak out. Like, no one got sucked into the garden. No one turned to stone. No, and you're like, okay, like that almost made me more uneasy, I think, because that's usually how every episode ends with this, like, Waverly screaming, Wynonna, or like someone getting, sucked into a garden, or tentacles coming out of somebody and like somebody's eyes turning black. And so I was waiting for that. And then we didn't get that, but instead we got this parallel of relationships, one on a high and one, on a very on a low. And I think that it's really interesting that is what we're going to spend the next several months discussing, instead of like some supernatural cliffhanger. It's the cliffhanger. It's the cliffhanger of real life and relationships and things that what we all come to the show because we love the relationships and the characters. So yeah. So I guess happy ending was the wrong word.
Less fraught than usual.
Happy for Waverly. Happy for Waverly.
Yeah.
True. Lisa M?
So I'm going to actually echo. I think that Bonnie is right. There was a happy ending. There was a thread all through the first 5 episodes where both you heard from Waverly and from Nicole about not giving an answer or being engaged. So I was really happy to see that. And I think the way that their relationship blossomed, I just love to see that. Like, it's so tender. It's so, and as a romance, and I'm a romance writer, so I love these things, but it was so wonderful. But I didn't expect the snowy garden. And I love that they introduced Eve, and Eve is totally bad. Although, of course, why does Eve have to be bad? Why can't it be Adam? Like, why does it have to be Eve? That was just my own little personal thing. And I figure we're going to see more of that because, yes, Waverly has a gift, but it's not always a good thing. Like, a gift is not always a great thing. There's always a cost with your gift. I watched this. I watched the episode 6 again, and I cried again with Doc and Wynonna because, damn it, I'm waiting. But when they showed the two of them like kissing in the garden, and it was totally unreserved, I was like, oh man, we're screwed. It's not going to happen. Like, she's not going to let that. I just knew. I knew that was going to be like. I'm like, oh, you're just teasing me. You're dragging me down the garden path here, and it's going to look really sweet, and then something's going to come along and blow its bits, and it did. It did. So I didn't expect it. I'm kind of like Bonnie too. I was just so happy that it was back. Like, I've watched every episode more than once. And I love all the threads that are hanging because there's a ton of threads that are hanging. So I'm anxious to see where she takes it, but I have a feeling I'm going to be disappointed again on the whole Doc and Wynonna thing. It's going to be like moonlighting I'm aging myself, right? To be dating myself with moonlighting, but it's a never-ending thing where they just can't get together. Yeah, I'm just waiting to see. I'm just so happy it's back because I feel like they because I follow Emily on Twitter, and she, like, you could just tell from the way that she was tweeting that she really felt the pressure of 2 years absence and so much work on the part of the fandom. And I feel like she really delivered. Like, this was a wonderful thank you gift to all of us. There's a ton there, but it was a wonderful thank you gift.
Very good. John, how about you?
So I also tried not to come into it with much in the way of expectations other than snark and something twisted's going to happen. And they delivered. So rock on. I think structurally, if you look at it as you've got a season arc, and they didn't necessarily know that they were going to break at 6 seasons because nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition or the world to end. But this episode falling here kind of sets us up for a season finale wedding show, and for the wedding to blow up at the end of the season, leading us into season 5.
That's what I'm afraid of. Like, oh.
Well, that's how it logically follows through in TV world.
Don't you wish that evil on us, John?
I know.
But it might not necessarily blow up for Nicole and Waverly. It might be for somebody else who's there.
Right.
So.
But the wedding's going to be screwed up because it has to. And
Maybe
Lisa,
not.
as you were talking, I'll date myself because I was making notes on the back of this magic card, and what I wrote down was moonlighting curse. They can never get together. They cannot ever get together.
Get together. You've had a kid. Come on.
Do not ever let them get together. It killed Castle. It killed Moonlighting. It killed X-Files. It's killed every decent show I like. Never put them together. because it blows up TV shows. It works in books, but it never the tension that
The tension. Once they finally get together, people get bored with it, even though we want them together so much.
we do. Scully and
maybe
Mulder
not.
were so good when they weren't together, and they were so awful when they finally got together. But there are a lot of really interesting threads to loop back in And I think that gives them a lot of things to play with for the second half of the season. And they've had plenty of time to hash it out. So it's not like they came back and all of a sudden had to rewrite the season because, hey, look, your lead is pregnant, so let's rebuild the ship. So the second half is probably going to be tighter and cleaner. And I would expect them to have a lot of things laid out going into 5 as well, because they know that we're not going to let it die at this point. So they may as well just keep working on it.
No doubt there.
Oh,
Now-
I'm sorry. I don't know if you guys.
And I'm totally reading the comments. And yes,
Yeah.
If we had a stair scene, they'd have been okay. That is fantastic.
yeah, I had to cover the cat. I
That
had to
was
cover the cat's eyes when that went on.
that was so freaking hot. I was like, wow.
That was very hot, way hot. That's way
Yeah.
hot.
That goes back to
Yeah.
what Bonnie says though about taking risks. Like they don't show sex scenes like that between, a cis het couple, between a lesbian couple. Oh, that's like, no way in hell. And they did it and it was beautiful and totally
It
sex-
was beautiful.
Mhm.
It was
Yeah,
beautifully
it really was.
done.
Yeah.
Well,
Now,
for me, this season, I was so the last 2 episodes, I felt like I was just on edge waiting
Mhm.
for something to happen. I'm like, what's going to happen? They're going to leave us hanging. Because honestly, since I did it all in, consecutively,
2
I'm
days.
still not over dolls. I'm still not over that. That's still
Me
raw
neither.
and fresh.
I'm not over dolls either.
Oh, I just kept thinking, and then at the end of when they got engaged, which was beautiful, I love that Waverly said, "No, let me," and then
I
that moment was so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, "Oh no, it can't be good because that means something bad's gonna happen," and I just felt anxious the whole time. And when it was over, I was like, "That can't be the end," and I was like, "Did my DVR stop?"
I cut it off too soon. Yeah.
I started distrusting my technology. And I'm like, okay, that really was the end. So I watched the whole thing again and I was like, okay, it was good for Waverly, good ending, sad for Wynonna. But then I was like, that means when they come back, it's going to be that chaos starts probably for the next episode.
Mhm.
But I hope we get the Way Hot wedding and I hope it doesn't blow up. I hope we can have a nice wedding. That would be nice.
I think that Nicole's going to blow up the wedding because she hasn't talked about the fact that she made the deal with Ma'am. I love they call her Ma'am.
Ma'am.
She made the deal with Ma'am to hand over Doc. Like they said it, they dropped that bomb, and they kept right on going. And I was like, what? And I went back and I'm like, we didn't talk about that. Like nobody knows. And
Yeah.
I think and the reason I think that is because the foreshadowing she did with that crazy wedding, all in black. And I was like, oh, this wedding is going to be a disaster. And
Mhm.
That dress was beautiful, though.
oh my God, the
That
wedding
dress
was
was beautiful. And I was like, this isn't the real thing, but it was a nice little glimpse.
Well, and they do such a great job too of kind of, as Bonnie said, when it comes to, making us expect one thing and getting another, or having all the fans talk about wanting a wedding and then they give us a bad dream wedding, or wanting to see our
anxiety wedding.
have
Anxiety.
talking about in the fandom about wanting to see more, a Stetson back on the sheriff. And sure enough, we get a Stetson on the sheriff, but it's a different sheriff. So the be careful what you wish for applies certainly in Wynonna Earp. But
Can I just talk to you about the fact that they've now finally? I've been waiting for the Clantons because if you look at all the history of Doc and Wyatt, the Clantons are such a huge part of it. And even now, there are Clanton heirs that do podcasts and talk about that. So I've been waiting for the Clantons. I was totally excited to see how they brought them in. And I was very glad to see they made them the total bad guy, but I was really excited that I would have been okay if they hadn't been quite as bad.
well,
I think we had some glimpses of that. I felt like in midway through this piece of a season where Sheriff and Flighty Clanton, I don't know, Sporty Clanton, whatever her name was, Cleo?
Cocaine Cleo. Cocaine Cleo was one.
Yes. They were, it felt like they were kind of trying to break out of being awful. And Billy wasn't awful, but Ma'am was straight awful. Which, you know, that was my favorite character in Justified too, was the really awful crime boss mountain lady. So I loved that character trope in this show.
Well, I think it's so important because so many people grow up in toxic families, you know, with like toxic parents or siblings or relatives of some sort, and to know that you don't have to be that, you don't have to follow in those footsteps. You have, you know, that there is a way to break out with, you know, I think that was kind of where that was important to sort of show, you know, that like, and Wynonna's been fighting that the whole time, right? Like she's an Earp and she's got this curse to carry that was not, she didn't do anything for it. She just has to carry it because it's her family name. Clantons had this curse too. It was a different kind of curse, but they were carrying it as well. And I think now Wynonna's sort of done something that she's not typically wouldn't have done, which is shoot someone in the back, right? And especially a human, he wasn't a revenant, he wasn't a, you know, part of the curse in the sense. So she was integral in helping Doc Holliday learn that there's another way to do things and that he can be better and he has a choice. I mean, she's been telling him that this whole time, you know, you don't have to be this guy, John Henry, you know, that you were. And now we get to see if he can be that guy for her. You know, can he help her realize that she is better than the choice she just made? And she doesn't have to be that person. She does have a choice, you know, because she always says, I don't have a choice. I've never had a choice. And is he going to be able to help her? And then we might not get them together in the sense of like moonlighting, like you said, John, but just having them have each other's backs and help each other be better people, I think is where they're strongest, you know, because they are a little bit of those people that feel broken, you know, and together they aren't. So,
you know, you raise a really interesting point there, Bonnie, that she does talk a lot about, I never had a choice. I never had a choice. But kind of the whole quest for Peacemaker was that now she does have a choice because the curse is gone.
Right.
So
she
now,
made the choice, yeah.
Yeah. So now she has to choose to take up the sword. Now she has to choose to be this, whatever you want to call her. So it is kind of on her more.
Do you think though that it's going to? Because I think that Bonnie makes an excellent point that Doc needs to help her, but Doc is pissed and disappointed. Like I don't know about you guys, but that scene where he says, "I don't want to be that way," I was like, I'm bawling, and I watched the way that they looked at each other during the engagement scene, and I was just puddling because he is angry and heartbroken. And how long is it going to take him to get over his snit? Because he gets kind of snitty.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, just like Wynonna was when he turned into a vampire, and they were on the front porch. So it's the same parallel when he was a vampire and she was so upset with him and she said, "You're not allowed in this house anymore," you know, and she slaps him. It's the same flip. It's on the front porch, but now he's brokenhearted in her and her decision. So yeah, we get to see what kind of forgiveness Doc has in him as well.
Can I ask a question, everybody? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say that it's kind of like Doc started in one place and drove towards where Wynonna was, except Wynonna started in a different place and drove toward where Doc was. And then they passed each other. And now Wynonna did the cold-blooded killer thing and Doc did the I sacrificed thing and a little role reversal. So now they've got to take each other's journey back.
Yeah, and one of the things that occurred to me when I was thinking about it, and to be honest, I had a lot of trouble with the fact that Wynonna did do what she did. And I mean, even though that part of what she was doing was she was propelled by the knowledge that it was Ma'am who'd tried to get Alice and everything, but that was her. That was not the person that or Holt, right? That Wynonna actually shot in the back. But then after reading the interview in that article, the one that Bridget did with Emily about the episode, it made me think about a lot more, but to try not to be quite so harsh. But then after reading that and then kind of melding that with my own feelings about the whole thing, it struck me that yes, Doc has had a lot more time to go through that whole process, even though many of those years were spent in a well, don't get me wrong. I mean, still, he's had the process of, what he used to be and what he became. And even though he credits Wynonna for helping him get there, as John said, they kind of passed each other and didn't quite meet in the middle. And somehow he's going to have to, help her get back to, somewhere something that they can both live with. Because eventually I don't think if Wynonna would be able to live with what she did. She said she can, but I don't think she could.
No.
Not long term.
Would you guys have shot him?
Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
I said, would you guys have shot him, knowing about Alice? Would you guys have shot him?
Yep.
Well, he didn't have anything to do with it. It was the mother.
Well, so, and this kind of, if I can, that's an excellent point, and that's where I kind of want to go now, is to give each of you a chance
we just feel that, right?
to maybe be able to talk. I mean, Wynonna's decision and the impact of that. I mean, a lot of what's been great throughout the series is the idea of redemption, whether it's been Doc's or, potentially now this is Wynonna's path a little bit in terms of redemption for what she may or may not have done. And I say may or may not in the sense of what it means to people, because it has been, the discussion in fandom has been wonderful, but it is all over the map on whether or not she's justified and so forth. So I'm curious to hear from all the panelists a little bit. What are their thoughts? And shall we say semi-quickly, since we don't have a ton of time, on that aspect of it, though? Do you see that justified? Okay? Real bad? Need more info? Where are you on it? Let's start, Carol, with you.
Well, as I said, at the time that it happened, when we see the scene, we see him getting shot. But at first, I thought maybe it was somebody else. That it was someone else that had come up and decided to shoot him for whatever reason. Because let's face it, he was a pretty sleazy, guy, and in the first place. But to find out that it was her, and when she says thanks for distracting him, and just the look on Doc's face, that to me was it was shocking that she had done it. And just going through all that, as I said, I think that she has got to come to terms with what she did. And even though she said that she didn't, that she didn't have a problem with it, I do believe that she did. And there's also the fact that when she was, 20 minutes earlier, or maybe less, when the scene with her in the arms room at the sanctuary, when she and Rosita are in there and she's talking to Peacemaker and she says, because I'm a hero, damn it, and all this, and we get to do this stuff. And so I think you have the real question there of what does she see? And, it makes you question or wonder what the actual position of a hero really is and what does that mean. And I think that they're going to have to explore that in the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
Bonnie?
Mm-hmm. Michael Eklund, whenever we asked him in interviews, about Bobo Del Rey, why Bobo was a villain, he always said Bobo doesn't think he's a villain. In Bobo's mind, Bobo's the hero of his own story. Right. And there's a fine line, especially in comics and in between the hero and the villain. There's a very fine line between that, and ultimately it comes down to who holds the moral compass, you know, and who do we as viewers think, you know, one person's fighting for their family, the other person's fighting for their family, but we're on Spider-Man's side, you know, so like we want Spider-Man to win, but is he really that bad from the villain who's also fighting for his family? So I think it comes down to choices. It always does in life and in the show, for sure. It comes down to choices. And I think the season 1, Wynonna would have never shot him in the back. Season 1, Wynonna was still pointing the gun at Revenants and saying, make your peace, trying to help them and break the curse. But trauma from season after season after season of defending the homestead, defending Waverly, defending herself, and now Alice and everybody, I think it's taken its toll on her for sure. And so it wouldn't, you know, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, it did surprise me, but then the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, she's been through a lot. Does that justify what she's done? I mean, I don't think so. I think shooting someone in the back is not, I mean, something that we do, you know what I mean? And that's not something that heroes do usually, typically. So what do we do with that as viewers? When the hero of the story you love doesn't act like a hero? And that's what I think we're going to have to find out, is what does her family do with that? What does Wynonna do with that? But I firmly believe that at any point, you know, it's about the choices you make right now. So like, you know, what is she going to do with that? How is she going to come back from that? And how is everybody going to go with her? And as viewers, what are we going to do with that too? But yeah.
Lisa M.
So I asked the question, would you have shot her? And I forgot for a minute when I watched it that she didn't know about the family curse, you know, and Man was talking about how I've decided how, you know, who's going to get this gift for me. And then Holt said, I'm the heir. And I was like, oh crap. Does that mean it like just falls on him now? But I forgot. I can't remember if Wynonna knew about that. I don't think she knew at that point. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I just can't remember. But I think as a mom, knowing that this person was part of the family that tried to sell my kid or buy my kid for obviously no good reasons, I can understand why she did it. I think that we're going to have to see how she redeems herself. I think there's going to be redemption, not only with Doc, but also with Cleo. And, you know, Cleo is not the most stellar character at all. I love her. I actually think she's a fantastic character, but she is not a great character. She's not a nice character. She's not honorable at this point. And I think that's how, like, that to me is the path for redemption for Wynonna. And God, what a crappy path. Like, that's where you got to go, you know, to find your redemption. But she's going to have to, because she did shoot him in the back. But as a mom, I can totally get it. Like, you do things as a parent that you're like, oh my God, did I just do that? Because you don't think. And I think that's where Wynonna's head was. I don't know.
Good point.
John.
Mm-hmm.
So she should have called him. She should have yelled out and had him turn around and then shot him. I mean, look. Sometimes it goes back to Harper Lee and To Kill a Mockingbird, and some people just need killing. And she, at that point, is convinced that if she does not kill this man, he will do everything in his power to put a noose around her neck in the town square again. The first time she met this man, he was about to hang her in front of everybody in Purgatory. Mm-hmm. Yeah, put a bullet in him. Call it done. She's got to deal with the consequences of that. And no, she shouldn't have shot him in the back. But, and Bonnie, season 1 Wynonna may very well have missed, because she was not that good a shot.
That is a good point. That is a very good point. Yeah.
So, I mean, she may have felt like if the name Clanton is attached to him, they're going to have to, one of them, her or them, is going to have to end up 6 feet under before it's all said and done. And when you're in that position, well, to quote the greatest movie ever, Roadhouse, you got two choices. You can die or you can kill him.
interestingly enough, he's the second person she shot in the back, the first being her dad.
Mm-hmm.
And there again, that one was crappy aim.
Right. Yeah, that one was definitely a mistake.
That was a mistake, but like,
But yeah,
the parallel, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Lisa.
How can I follow that?
there are lots more Roadhouse quotes. You can pull from a different one.
I agree with Lisa. I think, her mother instincts came out there, and I was shocked. I thought, like Carol said, I thought it was someone else that shot him in the back. And then when she said, "Thanks for distracting him," I was just like, what? Like, I couldn't believe it. It completely threw me off. And then I had to take some time to think about it, because I was like, okay, yes, the mother instincts, she made that choice, but now she's going to have to deal with it. And how is she going to deal with it? How is that going to change her? What is she going to be like when we come back? Like, is she going to be the same Wynonna, or what aspects of her personality will change, if they change at all? I think it's going to be interesting. To answer Lisa's question, I understand why she did it. I don't know if I would have done it. I'm a little bit of a chicken, and I'm a bad shot. So
you were season one
would have gotten caught by mistake, right?
Right. But I understand why she did it.
Do you think too, though, that I think all of the characters, if you look at every single character, we haven't even talked about Jeremy and like the way that he talks about Robin. I'm like, oh crap, what happened to Robin? I think every single one of them is going to have to deal with PTSD over the last 18 months and the last 3 seasons. And I think that's all, we're going to see at least 2 of them have a complete, come to Jesus with the PTSD in the second half of the season. I don't know which 2. I'm not going to make a prediction, but I think at least 2.
And the time lapse had a lot to do with the trauma too. Like the trauma, the time lapse, all of that, affected, I think much different season 3 Wynonna, or season 4 Wynonna versus season 1 Wynonna, like all the trauma. Mm-hmm. And then the time lapse too. She was gone that whole time. So.
Yeah. And we've also got new girl Rachel, who's
awesome.
I love Rachel.
Awesome, but her PTSD of being trapped with her zombie mom scientist opened the door to the Garden of Eden / whatever. And now that can create a parallel for some of Nicole's trauma for waiver. You can use her as a device to get to some of these different traumas that people are so good at repressing. But when you've got a teenager sitting there and you feel like you've got to help this person not freak out, then it makes you deal with your own stuff.
Can we please ask that there's some redemption for Billy? Please, please. I really would like to see him. I don't know if there's any coming back from the Reaper. I would think not, but I am not going to say no.
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
Well, yeah, this show, yes.
With enough tweets.
Well, to kind of wrap up, since we're running a little long on time, I want to throw to all of you a chance to maybe, I know none of us can predict what's going to happen, but maybe you can talk a little bit about a couple of things that you really either hope happens, or based on where you see the story going, you expect to happen maybe. So a little bit of I think we might go here, and also a little, but I really hope we go there kind of deal coming up in the back half of season 4. Lisa, let's start with you.
I hope that we have a way hot wedding that is not chaotic.
Not a disaster.
And I know that's a huge hope, but that's what I hope for. it would be nice to have that moment. I think cinematically it would be beautiful and something that we could celebrate as fans without being anxious, like we are a lot. And I really want to see what happens with Doc and Wynonna. You know, I that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, John, what about you?
So mine are going to make people mad.
We're braced.
I did hope first. That's why I did hope.
But if I was going to write the season, because writing episodic fiction is kind of how I pay the bills. One, I'd blow up the wedding as the season finale, because then you're going to get season 5 guaranteed. 2, the back half of the season would be the revenge and then redemption of Cleo, because if Rosalita's gone, Cleo checks a lot of the same boxes that Rosalita did as a cameo or a recurring guest spot character. So you can use her in the way that you used Rosalita a lot of times and keep her interesting, because she comes in not knowing if she wants revenge for killing Ma'am, because Ma'am wasn't very nice to her.
Oh God, that was painful.
And then honestly, and this will be the least popular of the things I have to say, I'd kill Nedley.
Oh,
Oh no!
I would kill off Nedley, and I'd do it by natural causes.
That's it. You're off the panel.
That's right. You are.
I would
No, the Nedley must be sacred. No.
I would give Nedley a fatal heart attack, because his relationship with Nicole can break Nicole in ways that nothing else can. And making it happen by natural causes is something that this show doesn't do.
That's true.
So I would,
because it's Purgatory.
and I
Right.
would love the character and would love to see him for season after season. But if I were writing it, I'd kill him off probably 2 episodes before the wedding.
Well, John, we're glad you're not writing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't take that personally, John, but
No,
no.
We love Nedley.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because one of the questions we didn't get to, sorry to kind of interrupt as moderator here, is that thought that yes, we're getting 4 seasons into a show. It is a very dangerous premise in Purgatory,
and we've lost one.
We lost Dolls, but
we lost Dolls for career reasons.
Yeah, that was So I mean, the idea of losing a character, as much as it hurts, just from a story narrative,
Is realistic.
Yeah, it does kind of happen there. So. Yeah. Appreciate your boldness, John, in bringing it up.
If you're writing an ongoing series, you go too long, you got to kill somebody every once in a while.
That took a lot of guts, John. You blew up the Way Hot Wedding and killed Nedley in 30 seconds. I'm like,
right.
But if you do all of that, I just bought you season 5 and 6.
I honestly think that wedding is going to go off without a hitch. Come on now. Come on.
I know.
They're going to have a kiss. They're going to have a crazy kiss with a fireball behind them. I think it's a matter of debate whether or not they actually become legally married. I hope they do, because they deserve it. But it's a matter of debate. I think this is not as bad as the Nedley thing. I think Robin is dead. I really love Robin. I love the Jeremy and Robin storyline. I was so happy about that. And just the way that Jeremy is acting, he has stashed Robin somewhere thinking he's safe, and I don't think Robin's going to be safe.
I think that badge has Robin.
Do you think so? I don't know.
Because he's still got plants growing in him or something.
That's true. What else? If I had my hope, Wynonna and Doc would make up. I don't care if it's the Moonlight Curse or the Mulder, Scully thing. That would be my hope, but I don't think that's going to happen either. I think I would be disappointed from the romantic standpoint all the way through.
Well,
I would also like to see Alice again, but
saving us a bit there, Lisa. Go ahead, Bonnie. Keep us.
No, Nedley's not dying. Nope. So I don't know if we get a wedding at the end of the season. I think it gets postponed a bit. Not for any like bad reason. I just think it might be a little quick to tie up. But if they do a wedding, I think it's going to be one of those things where like, Waverly's got the shotgun and Nicole's got something else, and they're like, the wedding gets interrupted, but they're like still going through with their vows, and she's like, "I love you, babe," and she's like, and whoever's like, "I not pronounce you. You just kiss," it's probably Wynonna's going to officiate, So yeah, I think if it's a wedding, I can't imagine it's going to be just your typical garden ceremony. But I think we're going to get a lot from Wynonna going down this path of like, I would like to see her truly realize that she doesn't need Peacemaker to be the hero of her story. I would really like her to start realizing that her strength is within her, and she doesn't need Peacemaker to do it. And that if she continues down this path, she's no better than Wyatt. And that's something that she is starting to realize she doesn't really want to be. But yeah, I wish for that. I wish Nedley a long and healthy life. I want him to see his grandkids, because Chrissy's going to get married and have grandbabies for Nedley. I want the whole thing. So I want to see. I like the chemistry between Doc and Amon. Like, I am not against that either. So let's bring it all. And then I would like to see Doc realize that, he might be disappointed in Wynonna, but other people have been disappointed in him and have not turned away from him. So I would like him to not turn away from her, because they do have Alice, and I think that that's going to be pretty strong. And I want to see Nicole back in the sheriff's office. So.
Excellent.
And none of that will happen. There's going to be a gnome somewhere, and I miss it.
In addition.
Yeah.
Maybe
There's
there'll be
always
a
a
gnome
gnome.
with a hat. Who knows? With the
And
hat.
more of the truck. I want to see more of the truck. We didn't get enough truck. So yeah.
Well, and to follow up with what Bonnie was saying, I agree. I think that Wynonna needs to realize that to find that her strength comes from within her. It doesn't come from somewhere else. It may have taken Peacemaker and what her legacy was for her to realize what she was capable of, but that's not all of what she is. And, she even makes the comment a few times about, well, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be now. And so I hope that she does get a little further along on that journey of realizing that, because she's kind of gotten to a tipping point here with what, with the whole Holt shooting in the back thing, or just the Holt shooting, let's put it that way. And so, to somehow come to terms with all of that, I think that any writer is going to enjoy torturing their characters a bit more. So I think that that's going to go on for probably any of them, but it doesn't mean it has to be everything in their lives. It can be an aspect. I am one of those people that I get frustrated by the romance trope of people who have all these issues because they don't talk to each other. But when you have outside forces that are causing the problems, that's a different story. So we haven't really got that so much on this show in terms of the issues between the romantic couples that they don't talk to each other. If they keep things from each other, though, that's when they have problems. But it's not as though they just completely ignore talking to each other. So at least there's that. But I think for me, my main hope, aside from Nedley not being dead, John, is that we do see Wynonna come to be a little more accepting of herself and understanding of her role for her own, for her own good, for her own peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
If there's a wedding, Nedley will officiate, and that's when everything blows up. That's going to happen, right?
Yeah, because somebody in the chat said Wynonna to officiate, and I'm like, look, I am ordained by an internet church, and even they didn't ordain Wynonna.
This is purgatory, so anything goes in purgatory, right?
Anything
I
can
I
happen.
also want more Mercedes, but that's just because I'm a sucker for Danny Kind being back on the show. So let's, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's a big part of why we all love it. As we just touched on, we only covered a fraction of what's happened in the first 6 episodes.
Yes.
And there are so many things we want to see happen. So that's what makes it very exciting. But I really appreciate all of the folks who are here live in the chat. As any of you that
Yes,
are watching,
thank you.
recording afterwards, we had some great comments that we worked in. So thank you to those who were there. But also a big thank you to all of my panelists. This was a wonderful discussion. Appreciate all of you here. We've really had a great time. So definitely, folks, if you've never been to Dragon Con, this is a little bit of a tease in terms of a lot of the fun that goes on there when we have fan discussion panels. So certainly take a look at it and certainly enjoy some of the other content that's up there, because even any of the stuff the con has been streaming on their platforms this weekend for a $10 fee, you get a year's access to all of that afterwards. Yep. So you can feed your frenzy for stuff, and many of the things like we're doing here at Urban Fantasy and other tracks, these are up on YouTube and available all year long too. So thanks very much for being here. And
also they're going to replay on Monday morning, I think at 10 o'clock. They're replaying one of the 2019 cast panels on the live stream, which you can watch in real time for no charge. So,
and I plan to watch it since I didn't get to last year.
There you go, Carol. Reading from my notes. Yes. So this isn't enough. Then yes, Monday morning. Monday morning.
Oh, you had that already. Sorry. Okay.
No, that's perfectly. Yeah, but that was my way of saying there's even more content coming from the con. Yes, and there's a lot of it.
The only real benefit to this being virtual is now I don't have to run out of the panel room.
Or else have a few people who were going to shake your hand. So that you would have been running with a few others. Yeah.
Running from the West End through the food court to get to the
Yes. All of that fun.
Yeah.
So again, thank you, everyone.
Angry Earpers chasing
Please
me down.
Check some more content, and we appreciate everyone very much. Thank you, gang.
And thank you, Kevin.
Thanks,
Kevin.
Kevin.
My pleasure.
Thanks, guys.